Here we go. Guys, thank you for joining us. See you at noon. Today we have Hampton Scurlock, KREIA board member extraordinaire. I'm Rob Bergeron, realtor with the Housing Associates. First, we're going to just knock out the disclaimer. We're not lawyers. We're idiots, just like everyone else. We're not really idiots, but you just do your own research, due diligence. Our opinions don't represent KREIA necessarily, but that's just, we got to say that out right away because you never know what's going to be said. But guys, I want to start today with a story about Hampton. So 7 years ago, I started as a realtor, and I wasn't from here. I had two friends that lived here, and it was just a better market at the time, so I moved here instead of back home to Cincinnati, Ohio. And so what I did is I was just posting Craigslist ads all the time for listings. And if someone posted one ad, I'd post 50 and I would just knock them off. I made it really competitive. It's something I could do while I was watching Netflix. So Hampton reached out to me about a property. And Hampton, you correct me if I'm wrong when I tell the story. So Hampton reached out to me, and it was to go see some stuff in 40211, 40210. Not a lot of money commission. And so I would go and respond, and I would go get them out there. And then I think Hampton took a liking to me because I was responsive and I didn't have anything else to do. So I just kept on showing him stuff. And then I started learning about what he was doing. And then I started going to Next Gen and all this other stuff. And then since Hampton worked with me, because everybody knows who Hampton is, a lot of people assume they needed to work with me as well. So then I was like, well, if I'm going to work with investors, I need to become more well-read and learn. And then here we are. And that's how I got started even working with investors instead of being just a traditional retail. And it's so great because this niche is way more empowering for like helping your friends create residual wealth. And I don't know, this sounds really arrogant, but my biggest fear is that I retire and none of my friends can retire and play golf and do fun stuff with me. So this is like a great tool. And like, I mean, you can invite people here to the KREIA meetups, everything, like just get them thinking about it. I mean, you saw those statistics last night. People are not preparing for the future. And then it's just scary. And I don't want my friends to not be able to vacation, do all that stuff. But yeah, so Hampton is a board member. His background is financial advising, and he was making more money doing the side hustle with flipping and wholesaling and buying rentals that he just quit his main job. He's on the board. He is a wealth of information for land trusts, LLCs, self-directed IRAs. Hampton's buying houses in his HSAs, guy. Like, it's crazy. Like, Hampton's wealthier than everyone here probably on this call. But I would show him houses, and he's picking up change, guys. He's buying he's driving like a $2,000 PT Cruiser, collecting his 58 cents per mile, and they're really just paying him to drive, guys. Hampton, introduce yourself. Hampton Scurlock.
Well, gosh, Rob, that's a great introduction. I apologize. My internet, I got a message saying internet's unstable. Not sure what's going on. Maybe all these kids learning and doing online school. So I apologize if it's bad reception. Okay, great. No, thanks for that introduction, Rob. Yeah, I love real estate, and I'm glad Rob and I got to hook up, and I know we got some interesting stories about some of the things we've seen and the shoddy construction that we've witnessed at various properties. But yeah, it's a great business. I'm glad to be part of KREIA. It's a wonderful organization. We're one of the only ones that's nonprofit. So thanks you guys for tuning in today. And one of the first things I want to talk about is we've got so many great members and great sponsors, and Rob's kind of taken the reins on fundraising and Home of the Innocents. And we had an idea that since we're not meeting in person, we miss all you guys. I know the Zoom meetings are great, but since we're meeting in person, we can't do those 50-50 raffles where half the money goes to Home of the Innocents. A lot of times people give that money back. And so we've got a promotion we're going to launch next week. I guess September 1st is the official date. So for all you KREIA members out there, make sure you tell or ask your closing attorneys about this. But the KREIA members and sponsors that we've talked with that do closings, several of them have agreed to donate $10 per closing to Home of the Innocents. So the Rawn Law Firm, Michelle Rawn, everybody knows her. She's on the board as well. Borders and Borders is going to participate. Hunt Rounsavall Title, Brad Lammy with Lammy Law, and Millennial Title is going to participate as well. Rob, you said you may have one to add. I don't know if we had new additions.
Brad Rue started a title company. So I reached out to him, but he was in Chicago.
Oh, Brad Rue did.
City, okay. Yeah. No, so I don't know if you're cut out right now.
Okay. So if you're
go ahead.
Yeah, maybe cutting in and out. But so make sure you tell your closing attorney, or take your business to these closing attorneys that participate and help sponsor KREIA and give back to Home of the Innocents. Again, that's Rawn Law Firm, Borders and Borders, Rounsavall Title, Brad Lammy, Lammy Law, Millennial Title. It's going to go from September 1st all the way through the end of the year. And our thought was we can raise money for Home of the Innocents. We can also get some good data. How many closings are KREIA members doing just during these last 3 or 4 months of the year? So when we talk to the city and about a landlord's agreement, and we can talk to city officials about how many properties KREIA members are buying and the money we're putting into the community and materials we're spending money on and paying.
Hampton, you're cut out.
Also get some good data. Yes, we're hoping to get good data out of it.
Oh yeah. And guys, data is the #1 commodity in the world now. It surpassed renewable energy and energy. So guys, just think about this. We're going to know how many closings are happening essentially from September through January. We're going to know, I don't know. I think it's going to be really cool and really powerful. And this was all Hampton's brainchild. He put this all together and reached out. And guys, it's just cool. It's another cool way to learn, create more money, and then maybe start the conversation at the closing table with the person that's there. It's like, oh, you're not in KREIA? And then you can tell them about it, because somebody's got to hold up this country, right? Financially. Hampton's cut out for me. I don't know about you guys. Hampton, you're back. You're kind of cut out.
Yeah, sorry, my internet's cutting in and out. We're having, looks like a little rain or a little storm outside, but nothing major.
I love this weather. But no, I think the data is cool, and it's just a great way to give back. And Home of the Innocents does so much awesome things. Yeah, and this was great. Great idea, Hampton. Hampton, I think everybody wants to know, where should we be putting our money in? Right now, let's say I made 6 figures a year, and I want to start planning for my future. I'm familiar with HSAs and self-directed IRAs. Could you maybe give me an order of operations on where I should be putting money in first before I start, spending it on BRRRRs and all that stuff? Where should I be protecting my money?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And Robbie, you gave your disclaimer. I'm going to give my disclaimer back from when I was a, planner. We'd have, the proceeding is not investment advice. I'm not giving investment advice. Consult a professional. These are just opinions and generalizations. So we're not going to be talking about particular, mutual fund. And then this is just general rule of thumb information. Everybody's situation is different. So consult your professionals before making any such decisions. But kind of the rule of thumb that in order of operations that I would talk to, clients about years ago would be, if you're going to put away money, it's good to save on taxes. So first you want to meet your day-to-day goals and expenses. So you want to build a little nest egg, put some money away for monthly expenses that you can have access to. Once you've done that, then if you're looking for more long-term savings, that's what I'm going to focus on here is, if you're working and you've got a company 401k and they give you a match, yes, the choices may not be the best. And yes, you can't self-direct it today, but that's free money. And you're getting a tax deduction generally when you put it in if it's a traditional 401k. So kind of the rule of thumb was put into that 401k up to the match. And then if you're eligible, HSA was the next one because you get a tax deduction and it grows tax free. And there could be some cases where the HSA comes before your, but we're not going to, split hairs here. If you're not eligible for an HSA or after you've done the 401k match, your own IRA, whether it be a Roth or traditional, because now you've got more investment options. You can self-direct it. You've got a little more flexibility. And then once that's
Hampton, are you more of a pay the taxes up front kind of guy, or are you more of a, hold off and just kick the can down the road?
Well, I've got some accounts that are both tax deferred, and some that are like the Roth IRA that you forgo the tax deduction up front. So you pay the taxes on the money, but then it's all the growth, all the gains, all the earnings are tax free in the future. So I'm a bigger fan of the Roth, especially if you're younger or you're getting high rates of return or have good returns on your money, like you can get in real estate. If you think of, a farmer, would you rather pay taxes on the little seed, the weight of the seed that you're putting into the ground?
Mm-hmm.
That's like with the Roth IRA. I'm not taxed on that, $6,000 you can put in, or if you put in just $2,000, you don't get a tax break. So you pay tax on that, on your initial contribution. You pay tax on your seed. But as that whole apple orchard or that whole field of corn, harvests and you reap that year after year after year, and it grows and it accumulates, and you got, metric tons or millions of ears of corn or whatever it is, all of your harvest is tax-free with the Roth IRA. So I'm a big proponent of it. If you're going to invest in real estate, research self-directed IRA, self-directed solo 401k, because the more you can keep in your pocket, the more powerful compounding effects become. You save money on taxes, and you get to reinvest that money that would have gone to pay Uncle Sam. And with the retirement accounts, you don't have to bother with 1031 exchanges. So they're built in, but you don't have to pay for them. You don't have the time constraints, the identification requirements. You can keep rolling and flipping and upgrading and changing properties around in there over time, or the rental accumulatory as well. So, big fan of HSA and Roth IRAs. If you've got, children or grandchildren, you may look into ESA or education savings accounts. They used to be called the Coverdale savings accounts. You can't put much money into them, but maybe you find a deal or you partner with your, grandchild, or give her a partial, let him or her own part of a property, and they get part of the rents and part of the gains when that property sells. And you can introduce them to real estate at a fairly young age, and they're not having to pay, tax on all this rent or gains that they get. And that money can be used for education expenses, a variety. I mean, vocational school, trade schools, room and board. Now it's got a lot of ability. Even I think computers, they've expanded the definition of qualified education expenses. So pretty
Especially
powerful
now,
stuff.
right?
I'm sorry.
Especially now, you have to work remotely.
Yep.
Guys, this is the value that, it's worth every bit of that $120. So Hampton, let's summarize a little bit on that. So if you're generally speaking, and this is all generally speaking, if you're younger, go just a regular Roth IRA. And then if you're older, what would you recommend? Like, let's say you're starting to invest later in life at 50, 60. Would you just do everything, try to put as much into self-directed, or what?
Again, everybody's situation is different. So I hate to give a
blanket statement,
a vague answer. Yeah, blanket statement. But if you are, I've had clients, we had clients that were well into their 60s that we were encouraging them to do Roth IRAs because, one of them had a business, one of them was getting real good returns, the other was going to real estate. And they wanted to, since they've already paid money on that, since they've already paid the tax on the money going in, the other thing that was important to them is they weren't forced to pull that money out after they turned 70 and a half. And so that's another benefit of the Roth IRAs is the government's already gotten their tax money. They don't force you to pull it out at age 70 and a half or after 70 and a half like they do on a traditional IRA. And again, I'm talking a lot of generalizations. If you want to read the ins and outs and learn all about IRAs and possibly put yourself to sleep, read publication 590 from the IRS. And that gives you all the ins and outs of IRAs, contribution limits, restrictions, withdrawals, etc. And it does tell you the two things that you cannot invest in. And
wait, I can
IRAs.
answer this one, right? It's
yes,
collectibles, right? Collectibles is one.
Yes.
And then shoot, I'm blanking on the other one. I know the answer.
You see a lot of Lifetime movies about this, the scorned wife, and she wants to collect the what proceeds when she offs her husband.
Life insurance.
Life insurance is the other thing you can't put inside IRAs.
It's so nice that you just only have to worry about those two things, and everything else is like the world is your oyster.
Yes, it's virtually unlimited, and the only reason those two are excluded because they're treated differently for tax purposes. So the IRS has said, those two things you can't do, but virtually anything else you could think of, you can do. You could buy a food truck. You can loan money like some KREIA members do. You could buy a mobile home park. You could buy properties. You could invest about just businesses, notes, liens, tax deeds. The sky's the limit.
Guys, I'll tell you what I'm thinking about right now. And literally, like before this, I was doing research on it. I have a couple clients that are just killing it with this. So I've been looking at like what type of RV should I be getting, and that would be an easy way. You can put your $6,000 into your IRA, and then use that $6,000 as a down payment on like an RV, which is going to be so cheap, the monthly payout. And then they're putting it up on Outdoorsy and RV Share, and like getting $1,000 for 2 weeks. And like your total investment, just started raining here, is like maybe $24,000 depending on the price. So I'm like, wow, this is a good way. Start building a fleet. And then if I want to go travel and enjoy myself, I have an RV to use, and my friends and family, like enrich everyone else's lives around you, show them how they can make money and have everything they want. I know. Mix and match. I know you can't really do that. I can charge myself to use it though.
I put a big X there. So there's another thing. This is the fine print or the nerd in me coming out, that there's some rules you need to follow when you're doing these IRA investments, and one of them is self-dealing, and you're not supposed to have any use of your IRA property. So if you bought a vacation home to rent out as Airbnb, you're not supposed to perform work on that property. You're not supposed to have personal use or enjoyment out of it. So it's I don't know about the RV thing there, Rob. You using it, maybe you could use your friends or they could use yours. That may be okay, but you wouldn't want to use your own IRA property. Yeah, there could be a workaround, but it's you just want to follow those rules because you don't want to do anything
that'll jeopardize
the tax treatment of your IRA. So, but they're pretty easy. Equity Trust actually gives a good discount to KREIA members. So if you're looking into these type of accounts, Equity Trust, trustetc.com. And if you tell them you're a KREIA member, they'll give you, I think it's like $250 off the first year. And they give you a bunch of extras, like gold service and expedited overnight, two of those free, and 2 free wire transfers. And I think they even contribute money to like the national REIA whenever a member joins. So and they've got a lot of good information on their website as far as the basics of self-directed investing, whether it be self-directed IRAs, self-directed 401ks, ESAs, HSAs. There's all types of different accounts you can utilize. And if your custodian allows it, or if you even need a custodian, then you can buy virtually anything you can think of except for life insurance and collectibles.
Hampton, will you tell people a little bit about how why and how you're purchasing houses in your HSA?
Sure. HSA they haven't been around too long, but it stands for Health Savings Account. And it is one of the best possible accounts you can have tax-wise, because if you've heard the phrase, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you told somebody, well, if you're going to put money into a Roth IRA, you either pay taxes on it up front or you pay taxes on the end. You can't get around it. Well, with an HSA, you can get around it because you get a tax deduction basically it's tax-free money going in. And if you wait till you're 65 or you use it for medical expenses, which is a real broad term, which could include life and long-term care insurance premiums, medical expenses, prescriptions, health aids, modifications to your home. There's a lot of things that qualify. Or if you just wait till you're a certain age and withdraw that money, it can all be tax-free. So you got a tax deduction when you put the money in, and it grew tax-free, and then you pull it out tax-free. So I think the contribution limit last year was $6,300 if you're a married family. You do have to have a high deductible healthcare plan or an HDHCP to qualify for this HSA. So not everybody qualifies, but if you do, run and open up an HSA, contribute all that you can into it, before you do your Roth, because it's like a super Roth IRA. You put money in it and you get a tax deduction, and it grows tax-free like a Roth. It's just supposed to be used for more medical purposes or expenses. But if you have a medical expense, you don't have to pull money out of that account. You can leave it in there and grow and let it accumulate and invest it. And maybe later you pull it out, or you keep a stack of your receipt for years. And at some point, if you need the money, you go back and submit those receipts or reimburse yourself for your medical expenses, because there's no statute of limitations. So that could be another source of emergency money if you need to pull cash out of that account for previous year's medical expenses.
So if you guys like nuggets,
you can buy properties. Equity Trust will be a custodian. Camaplan, iPlan Group. There's lots of custodians, and basically you'll have money in your HSA, and you can buy stocks, bonds, again, virtually any type of investment that your custodian would allow, and you can buy a house. So you find a house. I thought about using my HSA yesterday. I closed on a house on a subject to deal, and it required a total investment. I wrote a check at closing. I think it was $212 to take over a property that's already got we already got tenants in, and it's good to go. It'll cash flow real well. So if I wanted to, I did that in my solo 401k. So that was a little easier and quicker, but I could have easily just told my HSA, hey, I want to buy this house, send a check to Borders and Borders for $212, sign this paperwork, and then my HSA or my trust that the HSA owns would own that property. And then if I'm making $498 a month cash flow, then that would go into the HSA tax-free and grow and accumulate, and I could buy more properties with it or do something else with it.
Well, and then think about all the stability you have, not only the tax benefits, but the idea that you just have all that money sitting there to like protect you and your family if you have like a major health issue, or, I mean, can you roll that over into like senior living and stuff like that, dementia care, stuff like that?
There's some things you can do, and they've recently made some changes in what qualifies for HSA expenses. It used to not cover certain, eyewear. Now eyewear is included, prescription drugs, and I know they just made a change for this, feminine products and sanitary napkins. Those were now they're included. And it's a several page list of what you can use it for. So I'd say refer to that, because it changes. And I haven't followed it because I'm not really wanting to pull any money out, or I just want to keep it in there and grow and accumulate. And down the road I may need it or want it, but you're not forced to pull money out if you have a medical expense. You can elect to pay for out of pocket or to put it on a credit card, and you could reimburse yourself later. Just keep those receipts. But I don't want to pull anything out of that account, because it's wanted to stop being tax free. I'd rather keep that money in that account as long as you can.
Yeah. Okay, so you are, if you guys don't know this, Hampton runs a group with Todd Hunter on Wednesdays called Next Gen, where they meet and just bring in speakers and discuss. It's literally every Wednesday at Wildwood Country Club. It's $5 to pay for the room. This week it's not at Wildwood, right? It's at a property.
Yeah, yes, it's actually a KREIA members Airbnb. And Rob, we've recently switched it because we started back up. We're going to do it just the second and fourth Wednesdays.
Okay.
So because of COVID, we're trying to practice social distancing, and yeah, when we do the on-site meetings, there won't be any cost. And actually, I believe SurePoint's going to provide lunch.
Hey, thanks, Jordan.
Yes, thanks, Jordan. The Wayne Gallivan and Eric Feller have a nice Airbnb, I think on the 3900 block of South 5th. But after, so that'll be a week and a half, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. And then we'll start going back to Wildwood, starting at noon on the second and fourth Wednesdays.
So, okay. So you're talking to all these new people, you work with a lot of experience. What are some pitfalls that you're seeing people falling into like early on? I know like analysis paralysis is pretty common, but what are some other things you're seeing?
Gosh, yeah, analysis paralysis is a big one, and people wanting to learn and know everything before they just jump in. I had a gentleman call me today, and I told him just to drop these two houses because they weren't a deal. But he's got it in his mind. He thinks he can work a deal and make this happen. And it's 2 properties in the West End. And I went ahead and checked the city fines, and each property had fines of about $30,000 on it. There's $10,000 of taxes on the other one, probably some judgment liens. So I've told him he's going to have to, and the property is horrible shape. So hardly anybody's going to want it. He's going to spend a ton of time trying to negotiate the tax liens down, the city fines, negotiate to get the owner on board. He doesn't have any money to fix it up or to buy it himself, but he's wasting a lot of time. And I've told him not to. It's just not a good way to do it. You're not going to make any money. You just spend all this time. You may learn a few things, so there'll be some value there, but you're going to learn what not to do or how long all this stuff takes, and have no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow you're chasing. So pick the good deals. Know what a deal is. Work with somebody or ask them if it's a deal or if it's worth pursuing. So waste all of your time and effort and then get frustrated that you can't close the deal because it's got 4 times the amount of liens, fines, mortgage, and taxes on it than the property's worth. So just focus your efforts in the right place and places that'll make you money, or deals that'll make you money, rather than spinning your wheels on certain properties or areas that may have more issues than others.
Yeah. So Hampton, a lot of people reach out to you for advice and want to hang out. How do you how do you time block to get your stuff done, but also are you learning to delegate when you have all the stuff going on, or how are you managing your workload?
Well, that's part of the reason we started those Wednesday lunches. Anytime anybody had a question, I'd always pick up the phone or answer and talk to them. If they want to go grab a beer or lunch, I'd say yes. And then, and Todd Hunter, I think, was the same way. And then I realized one day somebody asked me to go to lunch, and I looked down, and I was booked up for the next couple of weeks for lunches. And it was kind of killing a lot of my day because I'd be on a job site or run around looking at houses, and I have to take out time in the middle of my day to meet somebody someplace for lunch and then go back to trying to get the rest of the work done. And I thought, shoot, so many people ask similar questions, or I'm saying the same things at a lot of these lunches. Let's just get a handful of people together and do all lunch at the same time, same place. And so we started meeting at a Arby's, and a handful of people sat down and answered a lot of questions. Different people had similar questions, and it was a good time. And they said, let's do this again next week. And so we invited new people or people that reached out to me, and it just kind of grew. And from there, made a lot of good friends. See a lot of people get real successful, in various aspects of real estate. And then it's kind of been a feeder to. There's a lot of KREIA members that come, and a lot of people that are new to investing. We kind of push them and encourage them to join KREIA, because KREIA's got so many more resources and members than our little Wednesday lunch group. That's just a kind of a more fun, informative thing, informal group. And KREIA is just a great organization to be a part of.
And Hampton, how much do you charge to help people?
Nothing. So it's I'm here and I'm happy to help. And Rob, I say nothing, but sometimes people, I get some nice gifts in the mail sometimes, or somebody, take me out, take me out for, a beer or burger or something. But no, I just like to help. And then many times, honestly, there's not necessarily a selfish motive, but I've found that the more I give back, and if I'm helping people and I'm training them or telling them what I'm looking for, what I would do, many times they're calling me first with their deals or with their questions. And sometimes we partner on things, or I'll loan money or buy it myself if it's something they want to sell off, and that they make money, I make money, everybody's happy. And so it's business has been great, since joining KREIA and giving back. So if you get a chance, and anybody out there, if you can share wisdom with others, your experience, do it, give back, it'll come back to you tenfold.
I agree with that 100%. Another nugget, plus you just feel good. I don't know. I think this type of real estate, like I said, I'm a realtor, and there's all these people that are strictly traditional realtors, and I think that's great. But it's so much more satisfying helping people create residual wealth and make sure their families are taken care of, and maybe get out of the 9-to-5 job. I think that's so rewarding and satisfying. It's the best thing out there. Hampton. I know Hampton's email address because I've typed it in so many times. So I'll post it for you right now. I don't know if that's his favorite one right now. Sands means excluding this week. So Sands is excluding. So this week is they're meeting at an Airbnb on 5th Street, which that area has been blown up a ton, Beachmont. All right, so Hampton, you've been around the block for a while. What do you think is going to happen with this like hyperinflation, low inventory, like more of a need for more space, like the commercial office space industry is getting killed, downtown's kind of just real tough right now. What do you think is going to happen in our market?
In our market, gosh, I'm not an economist. I try to follow some of the trends and list of people that follow them or spend more time on them than I do. But yeah, I'm not buying any office space, retail space myself. It's not my niche, and especially with everything going on, more and more people are working from home. I don't see the office space or retail market recovering, quickly with everything that's been going on. So I have seen, seems like more people wanting Airbnbs and private getaways and to be away so they can quarantine in a nice space, and they're not having to go through a hotel lobby and in an elevator with 10 other people have been through in the last 5 minutes, and so that may be a little niche that really booms or takes off. Or I don't even know if this is a term, but a quarantine house, where if a family member is sick and other family members want to send them away, or they want to get away from that family member because of worry about sickness, if they could furnish rentals, that could be an Airbnb type, but geared for people that need to quarantine for a few weeks. You got internet, all the utilities are included. We've had good luck as well with people that are getting a house built and they need a furnished place, and you get so much more rent on a furnished house versus than an unfurnished house. So you got to clean it more often, but the income is there. It's worth it. People getting divorced, people that had a house fire, people that are getting a job, transfer, they're waiting on their builder to finish their house. That's been a gold mine for us on some of our Airbnbs during the slower times. Because we'll look for those type of tenants. And I think if somebody made a business out of it, there's money to be made there.
I agree. Well, guys, if you were on the call last night, I don't know, I think this was like towards the end, so around like 9. But they mentioned that one weird niche that's coming up too is people are booking rooms in Airbnbs to get out of the house so they can work and get their work done, which is really interesting to me. I think that's fascinating. They also mentioned that typically in the past with Airbnb, they would drop their prices like if they didn't have something rented. But with the uncertainty about what's going on with COVID, people rent like the week before or whatever. So they're not dropping their prices. It's pretty, which I think is really interesting because it flipped, but it makes so much sense. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that made a lot of sense. Like Hampton's so smart, and I'm okay. And who would have thought that oil prices would have gone down because people weren't driving to work anymore. And then we had too much oil. And they didn't have anywhere to store it. And it was this huge crisis. It probably still is. I'm just an idiot. But there's a lot of crazy stuff. So if you were going to start investing money right now with everything and new or old, it doesn't really matter. Where would you be shoveling your money in right now?
Yeah, it's I know Eric spoke last night, and I like a lot of what he says. It depends on what your goals are. I mean, if somebody's just starting out, or even if they're later in life and they want income, some of the cheaper houses, if you can find good ones or they don't need too much work, the ROI and the cash flow on them is just so great. I kind of keep circling back and keep kind of picking up more of those, and they're pretty easy to find. Everybody's looking for the next flip house where they can make a bunch of money, and I look, gosh, I had a flipper say, I made $27,000 on this house, but the sale fell through and this happened, or he thought he was going to make 27, he ended up making 11, and then I thought, gosh, he spent this large amount of money was hoping to make 27. That'd be pretty good. Took longer than they thought. Repairs, market, holding costs with 11. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then I realized those two first little cheap houses I bought down in Portland for $5,000 each. I said, they paid me that in rent in under a year. And so, and I still have them. Maybe they've gone up in value a little bit, maybe not a whole lot, but they just, it's the gift that keeps giving. And you're not out there chasing the next flip for the next paycheck, because they're generally coming in most of the time. Now you have turnover and different expenses you have to, plan a budget for, but so you want to put back some money for that. But affordable, housing, there's going to be a need for it in any market. And the houses will have some value. If they appreciate a lot, great. If they stay the same or go down, generally I'm okay with that, because you're getting the income off of it. The value could fluctuate up and down. The heck could go down to zero. If somebody told me my house is worth zero, I'm not going to believe them. I'll just keep cashing the $700 a month rent check from it until the value comes back to something where I eventually may or may not want to sell, may end up leaving them to the kids or grandkids or great grandkids. So it's kind of a way to build a.
And guys, you only lose money in the stock market and in houses if you sell. If you hold on to everything, eventually you're going to be back in the positive. Like, unless it's, a house that's in disrepair, then you have to put more money in. But even then, you'll get your money back eventually. All right. Okay. So Sue was asking if you're taking ideas for topic discussions, which they always are. And she was wondering about subject to and owner financing. Now, Hampton will talk about both those things. He's happy to. But I think, at least KREIA-wise, leadership has decided that maybe we don't talk about subject twos. And the reason is with subject twos, like, you're really, like, if the wrong people are doing it, and maybe they don't have the right background and information, and they don't have the means to cover their debts or whatever, like, you can really hurt someone's life. And so we're weary about talking about it, because the wrong people doing it, like, it's a great tool, but you really have to come from a good place, have a high level of integrity, and, like, we just hate the idea of people just using it poorly, right? But owner financing is amazing. If you can get seller financing, I mean, that's the dream without having to carry the debt. That's why the subject to is so awesome too. But okay, other questions. Mike Krupa, regarding self-directed IRAs, what are your thoughts about your IRA buying a house and using a loan? Is it a good or bad idea?
Mike, it can be a good idea. And the kicker is, with IRAs, solo 401ks, they have to be what's called a non-recourse loan. So non-recourse means that you cannot personally guarantee that loan, which, as you can imagine, most banks won't like, because they want you to personally guarantee it. They want you to have as much collateral and financial backing, and as many people guarantee it as possible. But it's a form of a contribution the IRS has ruled, where you can't personally guarantee something for your, has to be the collateral and really the only backing of the loan. So when you do those type of loans, banks generally don't want to do them, but there's some banks, North American Savings Bank, I think they have a website, IRA Lend. There's some local private lenders that may do those types, but they're a little riskier because you can't personally guarantee them. So I think North American Savings Bank does them, but they charge 10%, give or take a percentage point, and they want you to have 30 to 40% down, depending on what type of property it is. So you have to have some cash in that IRA to take down that deal, and then you have to be able to, borrow and make the numbers work at a higher interest rate. But yes, it can be done. You can use leverage in your IRAs. It's just, it may cost you a little more, and you need to make sure you're following the rules. Another way to do it, and I've done this, and I know other people have as well, is you find somebody that has funds, or you could partner on a deal with. So your IRA may have 30% to do a deal, but you don't want to get a loan. You're worried about, also there's something called UBTI, or there's some tax on if you use financing inside of an IRA, not on a 401k, but only an IRA. That it doesn't amount to a whole lot, but again, consult your accountant on this. But rather than going out and getting a loan, you may find an investor that can fund that deal, or fund, 70% of that deal and you fund the other 30%, now your IRA gets 30% of that rent or those gains from the flip, and you're not having to undertake a loan to do that. And then you sell it, you put the money back in your IRA or 401k, and you go on to the next one. So your IRA can partner with other people, maybe even yourself or family members, if you follow the rules and again, read up on self-directed IRA rules or self-dealing. You want to avoid that. But so it can be used. I've found it's easier just to pay cash with your IRA, build up enough. It's easier said than done, of course, but once it's built up, just you get offers accepted if you're paying cash. You can get them done quicker, less contingencies, get a better price. And if you can't go get a loan on it, or it takes too long, or you're unsure how to do it, there's lots of people in KREIA that may do those loans or may partner with you if it's a good enough deal. Hopefully that answers your question there, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Hampton. Hampton, Jeff wants to know, when did you buy those houses in Portland? Hampton's frozen right now. There you go. You're good. Hampton, when did you buy those houses in Portland?
When?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I bought one last month, but I bought some of the first two were like 07 when the market was down. So
Okay.
actually, it's kind of funny. The gentleman I bought them from, he's bought some houses for me, and then I bought a bundle of 3 from him last year. So we're still doing business together 13, plus years later.
Crazy, right? And that's the cool thing.
Yeah.
You get to watch everyone else grow in the industry too. And that makes you feel encouraged and empowered to grow yourself. Like, a lot of people just don't think they can do things, but when you see your peers doing it, it's like, I'm smarter than them and I can do it. Okay. Hampton, could you share your phone number?
Sure. It's 85.
Of course, he cuts out when he's sharing his phone number.
3095.
Hampton, can you repeat that? You cut out. You cut out. Hampton, can you repeat that?
Sure. I'll give everybody 2 of them. I've got a Louisville number, and that's what I use for bids. It's a Google Voice. It's 594 BEST, BEST, or 2378.
Yeah. Hampton will put it in the chat. Hampton, type it up in the chat.
Oh, thanks. Yes.
And guys, one thing I wanted to mention too, leadership at KREIA, our group is so diverse and people come from all different parts and all across the country. So, you never know if the person sitting next to you at KREIA grew up, in Pikes Point or grew up in Bullitt County or wherever. So when we talk about areas, we really need to be respectful, use zip codes, because, everybody comes from different places, and we need to be cognizant and just respectful to everyone. Hampton, we're going to wrap up. Do you have any other questions that you want to, or anything, one last tidbit you want to leave us with?
No, I want to thank the sponsors that are participating in the fundraiser for Home of the Innocents again, and, you, Rob, for putting this stuff together. And if I can be of assistance to anybody, call or text me. Hope to see you at some of the, upcoming KREIA happy hours and game nights. And we'll try to get that KREIA retreat together for Taylorsville Lake in probably late February again.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Hampton, thank you for all the great advice. Guys, we look forward to seeing you soon at noon. Take care. We'll have a recording of this on YouTube probably in the next 4 or 5 days. See ya.